guys, welcome back to my channel. As it is the end of the month, I thought that I would do my usual January wrap-up and February TBR video. This month has been a little weird for me in terms of getting reading done because last month I was so focused on finishing the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge and the Holiday Booktubeathon, I ended up reading a total of 13 books, pretty much all of them for challenges, which meant that when we went into January, I was suddenly struck with the idea that I could read whatever I wanted, which means that I instantly became unable to finish anything. So I had a couple instances of picking up books that I'd been really excited about, reading about 2 or 3 chapters, and then putting them back down because I just couldn't focus long enough to actually finish them. So I ended up getting through a total of 5 books this month, which was honestly kind of a struggle, and some of them were fairly easy ones to get through, so it was not like the best month in terms of like focus and reading for this month, but let's just talk about what I did. First, this will not be a surprise, I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I was doing a reread of the Harry Potter series on audiobook this time because they are narrated by Jim Dale and just recently released through Audible. So I got through Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the audiobook version, and then immediately afterwards got through Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It's been a little bit funny rereading these because I was not prepared for the level of nostalgia that I was going to have for them because I realized pretty quickly that I hadn't actually read them since the 7th book came out, which came out when I was about 17 or 18, so almost 10 years ago, and I read the whole series, but it was never like that huge of a thing for me, except that I read the first one over and over again because I was just at the right age for it. I was about 9 or 10 when I read the first one, but you might have guessed I read a lot, so it was always just another fantasy series of the many series that I was already reading, so it never became like that huge of a thing for me. But now, re-listening to them, I'm realizing that I have a lot more feelings about these than I realized, and a lot more thoughts about them than I realized, so it's been a fun time. I have started the 3rd one, and I will probably just do a straight reread of the entire series, because that just seems to be where my life is heading now. So other than Harry Potter, one of the books that I read this month was actually a book that I would have included in my January haul, except I didn't know that I was getting it. I got it the day after I filmed it. It is Text from Jane Eyre and Other Conversations from Your Favorite Literary Characters. This was actually a birthday gift from my mother because she knows me too well. It is written by Mallory Ortberg, who is an editor of The Toast and possibly a founder. I'm not sure what her role is, but the idea of it is that it is exactly what it sounds like. It is text message conversations between literary characters, so you get things like Lizzie Bennet and her mother of Pride and Prejudice, you get things like Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester, you get things like Fight Club. This book is absolutely hysterical. I was not expecting it to be this funny. I mean, I find Mallory Ortberg funny, I follow her online and I read a lot of her articles on The Toast, but oh my god, this book is hilarious. To be fair, it's only funny if you get the references, because there were a few in here that I just didn't really know anything about. Like, I didn't get the Babysitter's Club ones, and, you know, there were some others here or there that I just didn't really know anything about, and so I didn't really get the joke, but if you get the joke, they're hilarious. So I ended up using this for the satirical book category of the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. I also ended up using Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for a book that you haven't read since high school of the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. The books and authors that she references in here tend to be fairly classical, so things from 19th century and earlier, but there are some more modern ones. Like I said, there's Babysitter's Club, there's Fight Club. So if you have any interest in that kind of literature, I highly recommend picking this up because it is so sharp, it is so funny, she just like gets what these series are like and like what their faults are, and still there's like a sense of appreciation anyway, but oh my god, they're just hilarious. The next book that I managed to get through was a graphic novel. It was the Holic Omnibus Volume 4 from Clamp. It is volumes 10, 11, and 12 of the original series, so these were ones that I had never read in any form. Volume 3 I had some passing familiarity with because I'd read one of the 3 volumes in English and then I'd flipped through the other 2 in Japanese a couple times, so I had a sort of vague idea of what was about to happen, but this one I didn't really know anything about, and this series is getting a little bit crazy a little bit, because it's getting pulled into what happened with Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, which is a series that ran concurrently and tied into Holic because Clamp apparently doesn't know when to quit. And so they were putting out two series simultaneously that linked into each other, and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles went kind of off the rails, and I don't even really know how to explain it, but this one is now sort of starting to get pulled into it, but I'm still having a lot of feelings. One of the themes of this series is about Watanuki, the main character, not really realizing his own, like, the impact that he has on the lives of the people that he cares about, because he doesn't really realize his own importance. And so one of the, like, main things in the series is him realizing that he can't be reckless with his own safety or life, because if something happens to him, the people that he cares about, that care about him, will be upset. And that's a sort of different cultural concern than I think most American series are dealing with, because most American series are dealing with, you know, sort of individuality and being the hero of the story and that kind of thing. So it's sort of a different concern, but it's still one that's really effective, because it's about basically him having friends for the first time in his life, and that is obviously something that's gonna be like really like hitting me right in the feelings, because I have a huge thing about found family and, you know, families of choice and things like that. So him realizing that like people care about him and that he needs to stick around because people care about him is like a big thing for me. So I'm still really enjoying this series. I'm just really concerned with what's about to happen. So the final book that I managed to finish in January is one that I just finished actually earlier today. It is House of Shattered Wings by Aliette de Bedard. This is a French author. It is set in Paris, but she originally wrote it in English, so it has not been translated. I find it a little bit difficult to talk about the plot of this book because it actually doesn't like sit you down and spell everything out. You kind of have to figure it out through, you know, inferences and stuff, and I thought that it was really effective, and it expects you to just be able to keep up, which I think is something that is really great. But the basic idea of it is that it is late 20th century Paris, but there's a lot of like alternate history and fantasy history things built into it, where basically angels started falling down to earth, and they ended up creating houses for their own protection. Because they are magical beings, their bodies have essence of magic in them, and so they were like hunted down and used for their magic. Basically they were killed, and then their, you know, hair and skin and bones, etc. were used to fuel magic. So they formed these houses for their own protection, but then ended up going out and fighting with each other and taking over other lands and basically becoming a sort of imperialist power. And then there was a great war where all the houses battled each other, and Paris is now in ruins, essentially. So the story begins when a new angel falls to Earth. Her name is Isabel, and she is picked up by House Silverspires, which is the house that used to be the most powerful in Paris. It was founded by Morningstar himself, and is now falling into ruin because Morningstar has disappeared. He's been gone for about 20 years. There is also a Vietnamese immortal warlock witch. I don't really know what term to use to describe him, but his name is Philip. His name isn't really Philip, he's Vietnamese, but that's the name that they gave him. And he is taken in by Silverspires against his will and held there because they don't understand his magic, because they haven't met a creature like him, and he is not particularly inclined to explain it to them since they basically just took him captive. And then one of the final pieces is that Isabel and Philip end up having a sort of accidental magical connection, and they end up spending a lot of time together. And in their explorations of the house and the ruined nearby Notre Dame Cathedral, they end up stumbling upon and accidentally unleashing a revenge curse that has been placed there. And so it has some elements of murder mystery, it has some elements of political intrigue, because there's a lot of things about the machinations between the different houses in Paris, and I just got really swept up in it. I thought that the portrayal of the fallen was really interesting and cool, because they're a more like intricate and nuanced portrayal of fallen angels than I think I've really seen in a lot of ways, because they are basically just like any other immortal in that they're fairly human. You know, they have a lot of power, but they have emotions, and they take lovers, and they have ambition, and, you know, they're just complex beings like any other. They just happen to have you know, magical powers. And I thought that Philip was really cool and really interesting. I liked the way that his magic worked, which was different from the way that the Fallen's magic worked. And I thought that it was really smart about the portrayal of the house system and how it came to be and how it came to be so ruthless, but how it also is basically an imperialist colonialist power and the effects of that. You know, Philip basically was taken from his homeland to fuel a war in Europe, like, you know, many other powers in the real world have done. So this was the first in a series. I am really excited to see what happens in the following one. I believe the second one is coming out this year. So this is going to be one that I am looking out for because I really loved the characters and the history and the magic systems and everything about it. I thought it was really cool. So that was actually everything that I managed to read in January. Like I said, it was kind of scattered this month, so I didn't really get through very much, but because I picked up a lot of things and then just read the first couple of chapters and then put them back down, those are basically my short list for what I want to try to get through in February, so I figured I would go ahead and tell you what those are. The first one I've mentioned a couple times. It is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. I feel like I don't really need to go into detail about this one because I feel like a lot of people are talking about it and I've mentioned it a couple times, but it is about time travel and a girl who gets pulled back in time from modern day New York. It is from the same author as the Darkest Minds series, which is one of my favorite series, so I'm really excited to see what she comes up with in this new one. The next one is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was another one that I picked up, got a couple chapters in, and then just wasn't able to focus on. It's got some elements of spy novel, it's got some elements of murder mystery. It is about a city that used to have all these gods, and now the gods have mostly been killed off, and now the city is under the control of this new imperialistic kind of power. There is a murder, and so someone is sent in to investigate, and I don't really know a ton about the plot yet, but I've heard a lot of really good things about it. One of my friends keeps talking about this author in this book, so this is definitely on the list. The next one, again, I read like 2 chapters of it, but then just couldn't focus, was Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho. This is 19th century England where magic is sort of dying out. It's been recommended to fans of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Hopefully this one moves a little bit quicker, but I still really like the idea of Jonathan Strange and of this one where, you know, sort of magic is dying out and there's fairies and things like that. So this one is on the list and one of my friends has read it and loved it. So again, I'm hopefully going to be getting to this one very soon. The next is the Trader Barrow Cormorant. This one actually I haven't started yet, but it's been on my list because it's about a lesbian civil servant who is working to destroy an empire / court intrigue. It's just like everything that I want in a novel. I just haven't had time or focus yet to get to it, but hopefully this one is going to happen next month. And then the final one is actually a book that I just picked up yesterday, which is All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. It is a sort of urban fantasy, I think, about a mad scientist and a witch living in San Francisco, and about sort of their friendship, and it seems like it's sort of a pull between, almost like a commentary between the sort of tech world and sort of older hippie world that exists in San Francisco. And I think that's great because I live in the Bay Area, I'm very familiar with San Francisco, and I went to her signing just yesterday and it seemed like it was very funny and just really charming, so I'm really interested in this one. So that is everything that I got through in January and the things that I'm hoping to get through in February. I probably won't get through all of those, but that is the list that I'm going to be pulling from most likely when I'm trying to figure out what to read next. So let me know if you've read any of those or if you are excited about any of them down below, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Bye! Following one, I believe the second one is coming out this year. Cool.